If you look around my office, you might have realized I have kind of a love for dark and twisted cartoons. And a lot of that may be because I grew up with a lot of dark and twisted cartoons. Now, I'm not talking about the ones like Batman or the ones meant for older kids. I'm talking about the ones meant for little kids and probably shouldn't have been made for little kids. And I loved the hell out of them. I loved how much they scared me. I loved how every time you got through one, you felt a little tougher. So I'm doing a series reacting and reviewing them. We're gonna analyze how creative they are, how dark they are, and if the dark twisted tone was warranted. So join me in taking a look at some Dark Toons. Burger Zombies! Of course that's a SpongeBob episode. And we can't talk about this SpongeBob episode without bringing in a very special guest. We have somebody here who is very wonderful I've done a few things with before, PhantomStrider. How you doing, buddy?
Howdy, Doug. Good to see you.
He has a wonderful YouTube channel. If you haven't checked it out, do so. He talks about all sorts of things, animation, movies, commercials, TV shows, and he's a big SpongeBob expert. I like SpongeBob, but I'm definitely not expert on it, so I asked him what he thought was a good episode to talk about for a Dark Toons, and he brought this one up, and he's definitely correct. So I'm really excited to talk about this one with you, man, because I think you're probably gonna have a lot more info on this than I am.
I appreciate you asking me. I'm looking forward to it. I looked back at a couple of episodes, and the community suggested this one a lot, and I'm like, yeah, this has got some unusual things I think we're going to get a few chuckles out of.
With that said, Krabby Patty Creature Feature was released in 2017. Like I said, it has burger zombies, which doesn't sound that bad, but wait until you see them, man. Let's take a look.
Are you ready, kids?
Aye, aye, Captain!
So I'm curious your thoughts on this, because for years, again, I'm not a SpongeBob expert, but I've heard of fans say that like the early seasons were really great, really classic, and then like it lost its way somewhere. Like SpongeBob isn't the same. And I have to admit, seeing this episode, I thought it was pretty good. I really thought the animation was good and the idea was funny. So I want to know your take on it. Do you think SpongeBob has kind of lost its way, or to have some bumpy years? What are your thoughts?
I think people tend to look at the first 3 seasons as the classic episodes, but there was a kind of a period in between for probably seasons 4 to seasons 8 that were a lot more bumpy. The writing wasn't as good. But the thing is that the original creator, Steven Hillenburg, came back and he did a fantastic job in writing and animation with some of the new seasons. I swear I've spent the last 5 years talking about SpongeBob, trying to convince people to give these new seasons a shot. There is writing in some of these episodes that I would see in Simpsons, like in that they've got like those screw the audience jokes where you like, they set something up, then they suddenly break it and make you laugh. So I think there's a very talented team behind the new SpongeBob seasons. I think it's such a waste that people don't appreciate them more.
Oh, I want to talk about this. Oh my God.
This was one of those parts I thought you'd really appreciate. It's such obscure animation, and it's so abstract, but it makes sense when you logically look at it. He's taking the patties into himself, and he's thinking them into existence and to cook them. Animation-wise, you're like, I totally get it.
I mean, to me, this is sort of like the modern day coyote looking down and seeing there's no ground and then falling. It's like, it does make sense in a very strange, abstract way. There are ways that connect it. So I think if he just thought of them and grabbed them, that would have been an okay joke. But the fact that he throws them up in the air, it goes into his brain, and then he thinks them cooked and perfect, and he takes them out, that is really some abstract thinking. And honestly, this is the first joke, I mean, it's literally the first joke that made me say, I don't know, at least this episode can't be as bad as people were saying for years and years, because that really takes some creative thinking.
Now they're perfect.
What I appreciate is they make the animation interesting. It still captures the attention of children, yet at the same time, there's something there for adults to kind of grab to. They manage to make it creative and interesting for the adults to enjoy.
We just want something, like, different.
Yeah.
Not sure who these guys are meant to be sort of playing on. I guess sort of the indie sort of type, or the indie foodie.
This is definitely like the hipster stereotype, which is kind of growing more and more in restaurants. I mean, I guess you could call him a foodie, but very much people looking for quote-unquote something new. My first thought is, oh, they're going to be the villains, aren't they? And they're not. They're just kind of funny archetypes. The sad thing is when I watch this, I feel like kids can watch this and laugh at these two and the way they talk and just saying new, new, new.
New. New. New. New. New.
People my age, especially Americans, I feel like can watch it and be like, yeah, that's me now. Like, I do find myself like sometimes judging fast food. It's like, what the hell am I doing? It's fast food. So this is already like up my alley when you go into like mad scientist labs, and I always love that shot. I feel like any animator does when they walk through the beakers and their faces get all distorted from the different sizes and stuff. I feel like in animation it's just a wonderful excuse to try some different proportion. But the great thing about SpongeBob is that you're gonna do that anyway, so it's just great to have that shot in there and then know like in a minute you're gonna be creating those exact same faces for absolutely no reason. You don't even have to have a reason why they're looking like that.
And it sets the tone of the kind of weird setting of the lab.
Well, and even like this introduction of Sandy here, I just love that introduction of that giant eye, because that's another thing like in old mad scientist movies. There's always like a giant eye in a jar or on a TV or something. There's always a close-up of an eye.
I'm moonlighting as a molecular gastronomist.
I don't know if I missed a few episodes, but she's just a food scientist now. I just love that. It's a random talent she has now.
All of this is completely random. Like, why is Krabs suddenly got like hidden lab under the restaurant? Why is Sandy working for them? They barely interact. SpongeBob just does whatever it wants.
I love when Mr. Krabs puts him in the elevator. SpongeBob still looks so thrilled to be going, and he doesn't even know where he's going. He could be kidnapped for all he knows. He's just so excited because it's in the Krabby Patty.
Groundless excitement is one of the joys of SpongeBob, and I think why he is so globally loved, because like he works at a fast food restaurant for 23 years just as a fry cook working for nothing. It's like a happy dog. It just makes you appreciate life more when you see he's got it so crappy yet he enjoys it so much.
There it is, your new patty.
Always puzzled me because I'm like, what is it, made of Jell-O? I honestly have no idea what it's meant to be.
Actually, there's several things I like about this patty, this whatever evolved patty. One is that floats. Yeah, make whatever Tim Curry joke you want there, but I think that is legitimately funny that it's so evolved it doesn't even need gravity. Like, it's just floating on its own. And the other, I don't know if this was intentional or not, but I love that it's orange, because first thing I think of is Nickelodeon, and then here's a terrible callback because I don't even like this movie. I think of Good Burger. I think of that orange sauce that he has, and I don't know if that's a reference or not, but it does make me giggle a little bit because I read somewhere it was going to be purple, and then they changed it to orange. And orange just looks better. Purple, it would have looked more gross, like it was expired, where orange is just, it's a wild color, it's a very alive color.
Step right up and get your new improved patty.
Even the whole pile is floating, I love that. I love too they don't even pay for it. Just launch towards it.
Even this first part here, where he's got the sesame seeds growing out of his back, it's already got that real grotesque, uncomfortable feel to it.
So yes, this is the part where they turn into burgers, which again does not sound bad. It sounds like the most cartoony thing. Maybe because they get the textures down so well of like, you know, your skin turning into bread or turning into grounded beef. If you say someone turns into a hamburger, oh, that's silly. But if you say it's turning into grain bread and like slaughtered meat and stuff, it just sounds grotesque. And I feel like this animation weirdly taps into that.
I think they just sat down and said, how are we going to make a zombie apocalypse episode and keep it G-rated? How can we do that? Well, let's turn them into patties. That's technically not bad. We don't have to show blood. We can show mayonnaise or mustard or something. I think Sandy has one of the most grotesque transformations.
So Sandy is the second best design. I'll tell you my favorite in a bit. But one of my favorite things they always do with the character is when they incorporate the helmet into it. Like if she cries, like it'll fill up with tears to where she has to like flush it and stuff like that. And something like that where it just grows so massive it takes up the tube. And then it gets so massive, the tube is pointless. Like, I don't know, over her eye, I think.
A fun fact is they actually stopped bringing SpongeBob as much to Sandy's T-Dome, partially because it's really annoying for them to animate SpongeBob with his helmet on, and they can do less with his animation when he's stuck inside a helmet.
The drawings on those fingers when they pop out of the suit, man, that's like Secret of Nim drawings, man. That's like Nicodemus's hands.
That part got me the most. It's just, it kind of grabs out. I remember when I first did Creepier SpongeBob episodes 5 years ago, that was the footage I used right there to show what the hell is this.
Okay, I mean, just from here on out, I gotta control myself with this, because the animation from here on out with these things transforming is phenomenal. You could slow this down, watch it frame by frame, and just marvel at how much like they stretch and where the placement of like the eyes and the nose is, and the tongues and the teeth and everything like that. And every image is just so wonderfully exaggerated. Squidward is by far the most miserable looking one to me. Even though I think Sandy's maybe a little bit more grotesque, but Squidward just looks like he is suffering.
Pretty much you could rename SpongeBob to Watching Squidward Suffer for 25 Years. I tend to feel bad for Squidward a lot because he just wants to do his job. He just wants to not be bothered all the time. And yeah, funnily enough, he suffers the most as a zombie.
Couple things. One, I love how every single one of these burger zombies looks different. None of them are a repeat of the same design. One might have an eye in a different place. That one just threw himself into another person and became a two-headed burger zombie. Again, this is wonderful writing, wonderful animation, but it has maybe my favorite spin on the whole zombie idea, where the idea is that zombies always want to eat brains. They want to eat you. Here, they want you to eat them, and you become the zombie. That is so brilliant.
I just noticed that. That's true. It is a complete turnaround of the original formula.
A lot of times I feel in kids programming, if they just like alter one or two tiny details, in some ways they can get away with a lot more
Absolutely.
than if you just do it with zombies and stuff. I mean, how could you even do that? A zombie throwing himself in another person to make someone a two-headed zombie? It wouldn't make sense, but in animation with burger people, it's, you know, it's just natural. Patrick, the only one who willingly becomes one of these zombies.
Multiple times.
Really, Krabs? Is this some kind of new promotional gimmick?
All right, so I don't know this character. Is this a character they introduced later?
Yeah, they have this character on a lot. He's basically the critic, almost the the Twitter voice, in that he'll just come in and say, this is wrong, this is silly, this is not appropriate, or something like that. Often they will just play him up and, make fun of him and stuff.
When I was a kid, I always remember I could take a lot as a kid watching something, but the one thing that always threw me off is when I watch something and something happens to the little kid. And even though this is played for yucks and stuff like that, I wonder if there's any little kids watching this. And as soon as that scene happened, they're like, okay, game over. Anything can happen. SpongeBob could die. Who the hell knows?
Technically, because they're kind of just feeding him something, it's not scary, but like the way they present it is like, oh no, we've lost the kid. Again, they play within those parameters to not make it, bad or anything like that.
Bow down, SpongeBob.
Oh, great animation.
Great idea, having the heart on the tongue. A lot of this really reminds me of old school Ren and Stimpy, which is already like what it's trying to emulate. But I mean, this one in particular, just the fluidity of the animation.
I feel like SpongeBob is a culmination of so much of Nickelodeon over the years. It was started by the original writers and creators of Rocko's Modern Life, which is a classic. Now they've learned so much from, decades of animation and can incorporate much of it into this.
I don't want...
Plankton's design is pretty great too, but just again, what kind of a horrifying idea. I mean, you're not only being fed these things, you're just like engulfed in one of these things. I'm so impressed that they found so many various ways to make this so gross and unpleasant, but still G-rated. I mean, I feel like you could totally show this to kids and they'd be fine. If anything, I feel like if you're an adult, you're going to be more grossed out.
Oh, absolutely. And with that, the status quo is restored.
I just noticed, too, the new patties return to their original form, too, like they're that evolved.
I often wonder with this one if they were trying to get a message across, or it was something with the analogy. Because you see, SpongeBob steps in there and says, "You see,
some things don't need scientific re-engineering to be delicious. The original Krabby Patty is perfect just the way it is."
What are you trying to get across here? What that scientific enhanced Krabby Patties are bad? I don't quite understand.
Not that there's much of a message, but if I took anything, just sort of the Wreck-It Ralph, Nightmare Before Christmas, just don't mess with what's not broken, you know what I mean?
Pretty much a fast food, yeah.
All vintage Krabby Patties and the Krusty Krab are double the price!
Now that's a businessman. Oh, come on, that's his eye!
That's a great finish.
It just hit me, too. That means he had to eat it again. So it's like 3 times he eats that damn thing. I think this is really going out on a limb, but I wonder if this was all like some sort of bizarre commentary on Coke 2, when they tried to introduce like a new Coke, a new flavor, and everybody hated it, and they went and they called it Coke 2, and nobody bought it, and they tried to tamper with a classic, and then everybody remembered how much they liked the original.
I hadn't even thought of that, but you're right. Like, it's very much... I did talked about Coke 2 recently in one of my videos, and this is the kind of the reaction they had of, like, just saying, well, it's better the way it was. Let's just put it back.
I think this episode's hilarious. I am really impressed with the, not just the creativity, but the fluidity of the animation. Honestly, watching this makes me want to watch other episodes from this season. Because I've seen season, 1 through 4 or so. It's good animation, but nothing is consistently good as this.
Because SpongeBob has been going so long, I think we can see the trends of animation over the last 23 or so years shifting and changing, and what works at the time, what doesn't work at the time, what is more appropriate and isn't more appropriate. And I think that certainly comes into play. We get talented animation pretty much the whole way through. So we certainly get, like, there's a commentary just in that in itself.
Out of the creepy SpongeBob, or even just SpongeBob episodes in general, where would you rate this? Is this one that's pretty high up there? Or do you think, there's a lot grosser and weirder? Or do you think this one, even just in terms of animation, is one of the better ones? Or are there still even, like, more from this season or other seasons where the animation and ideas are even better?
This one's definitely up there for me in terms of, like, just fascinating animation, and I've watched it like 5 times, and I still find it really interesting and smile and laugh as I watch through. But I think there's a real treasure trove of talented animation in SpongeBob, particularly in later seasons. One I think you might want to look at in the future is potentially SpongeBob in Random Land, basically where they show all these different animation styles. It's like a treehouse of horror, but SpongeBob.
I love this episode. If you haven't seen it, definitely check it out. If your thoughts are, SpongeBob hasn't been good in a long time, at least this one is really fantastic, man. Any other finishing thoughts you got on this one?
Oh, just thanks for inviting me on the show and checking it out. And I'm glad there was some stuff you'd appreciate. And hopefully maybe in the future you might find some other stuff from SpongeBob episodes you also can appreciate.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining me again, man.
Pleasure to be on the show, Doug. I'll see you later.
Hey everyone, if there's any particular cartoon you want me to look at as being very dark or twisted, leave it in the comments below. Again, I'm not really looking for movie scenes or cartoons meant for teenagers or older. I'm talking about ones meant for little kids, but still scare the shit out of you. Whether it's an old cartoon or a new cartoon, let me know what you want me to look at.